All right, team. So today we're going to build the new post functionality. So this is using what you see is what you get editor. We're going to try using Slate, which is a really cool tool to build these kind of things. It outputs JSON, so that means that when we use that or store that, it's just a JSON object and we can format that however we want. It's a very cool package. So let's jump in and see how we do it. So here we have my 4x4. The first thing that we need to do is install Slate. So we're going to run npm I, and we're going to do Slate and Slate React. So just add those packages in. Let that happen. So here you can see in the package JSON file, we now have Slate and Slate React. Just quick background. So Slate.js, this is slate.js.org. And here you can see all the examples. So what we want to do for our posts is have it like a what you see is what you get editor. So basically what that means is you can type in and you can be like, yeah, I want this, I want to bold that, I want to underline this. And then you can say, I want to make a link to something or that code block, whatever. So we just want to create blog posts similar to something you'd see on like Dev2, something like this. It just allows people to, do a little bullet point, drop in some images, just like a really well formulated blog post. So we're going to use Slate to do that. So the next step inside of our project is we're going to set up a new page. So we're going to jump into source pages, and in here we're going to have a new folder and we're going to call it posts. And then inside of that, we're going to have a new file called new.tsx. So this is the page for our posts. So I'm just going to grab some code that I've done here. So we're going to set up a component. And in here, it's going to be the new post page. Okay, so let's go. So it won't actually have any props coming in at this stage. So we can get rid of these. And then here we're just going to write new post. And what I'm going to just do here, I'm just going to go console.log. Just doing that so it doesn't get automatically formatted away. All right, so here we're going to have post/new. All right, so here you can see the new post. I'll bump this all up as well. So we got our new post page all set up, ready to go for us. Okay, so then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up a few things. So we need to use the use callback functionality and use state from React. We're also going to use, inside here, we're going to use the flexbox and a button component from Chakra. And then we're going to grab a couple of things from Slate. So we're going to have the create editor function, and then these components, the base editor, descendant editor, element, and transforms from Slate. And then directly from Slate React, we're going to grab the Slate component, the editable component with React, a higher order component that we can wrap, and then React editor. Okay, so the next piece is we're going to define the types in here. So what we'll do is this. Just going to remove this line over here. So we're just defining the types here. And also we need to define two more, the custom text and the custom element types. So this is just set up stuff that we've grabbed from the docs from Slate. And then what we're going to do next is set up the initial value. So this is the initial value for our editor. So basically it's an array of objects, and then we're going to have a paragraph type object with some children in it. Okay? So now what we can do is we can set up the editor. So we'll do that here. So we're going to use state, and that's going to use the function with React, and it's going to create an editor from Slate. So let's do and see what that actually looks like. So we're going to see what the editor looks like. It's an object, and you can see inside here, it's got a whole bunch of things and functions and methods that we can use. And at the moment, there's no children. So it's all empty. So what we're going to do now is we will set up the render element function. And this is responsible for rendering elements inside of Slate. Okay, so we've got that. And now when we have different types of elements, we can render out custom components. So what we're saying here is when it's a code type, we're going to render out our code element. Otherwise, we're going to use the default element. And you can see we're getting errors here because we haven't actually defined those components yet. But we will set those up now. So the code element looks like this. Now, obviously, in this example right now, we're just shoving every component into the one page, which is just not what we'll do moving forward. This is just to kind of get us up and running so we can see something on the screen. So the code element will wrap it in a pre-block and then a code block. And then it's using the attributes from the props and the children. A default element's just going to wrap it in a P, so a paragraph tag there. And then it's going to render the children, and it's going to spread in the attributes as well, as you can see there. All right, so then let's go. So that's going to take care of this. Now what we're going to do is a rendering of a leaf. So a leaf is a portion of an element, I believe. So we'll just put that here. Let's just jump into Slate and actually see. So Slate.js leaf. So characters are leaves. All right, so you have an element and then you have a character. So each character has a leaf, okay? So that's what we got there. Let's see, we need the leaf component as well. So what it does is we wrap in a span and we spread in the attributes for that leaf. And then what we're doing here is we're saying if the leaf is set to bold, we're going to render the font weight as bold, otherwise normal, and then we're going to render the children, so all the items inside that leaf. Okay. All right, so the next piece that we're going to set up now is the actual editor itself. So we're going to run it in column. And now what we're going to do is we're going to set up the Slate component, which wraps everything. So we need to close that down there, Slate, and then this will just be children for now. So what happens here? So in the Slate React component, we pass in the editor. But then we also pass in the initial value, which we define up the top here, which is an array. Then we have an onChange handler. So as you change, we're going to run it through this. Right? So there's we return early here if it's just a selection. If we're just selecting text, we don't want to do anything. Otherwise, as we change, we are saving the content to local storage. And that allows you to pull as someone types, and if you could store that, and then you could retrieve that again. And it's basically a way of doing like kind of, I guess you could call it offline editing. So you could handle that, and then you could, once in a while, you could send that to the server to be saved. All right, so we'll continue now. So what we're going to add in this, let's just see if this is even rendering. Probably just need to double check. I probably need to restart our server because we installed those packages. All right, that's still saying new post. So it's probably, I haven't hit save, so we save that. So you can see we're just rendering children right now, so that's nothing useful really. What we're going to do is we're going to set up a little toolbar. So in all these things that we are used to using, if you have a look, this doesn't have an edit mode, but usually you have a little toolbar on top. So we're going to set that up. I guess we can, yeah, we'll just do that here. Right, so this is our toolbar. And then inside of that, we're going to set up a few buttons. So I've got these ones so far. So we're going to have a button for bolding. We're going to have a button for creating a code block and a button to save. All right. Now you can see here, when you click this button on mouse down, we're going to prevent the default, and then we're going to call custom editor.toggle bold mark. And then we've got custom editor toggle code block. So the cool thing about Slate is, so what that, we can set up basically a little function or an object that has those methods on it. And we're going to call that thing custom editor. So if we go and add that up in right here, so we've got a custom editor object, and then it has methods on it. It has is bold mark active, is code block active. So we check if something's active, and that's how we can toggle. If it is already code, we revert. If it is already bold, we revert. And then we have the functions coming out of this, toggle bold mark and toggle code block. Right, so we say, is it active? And then what we do is we use the transforms and we set the nodes. And if it is active, we set type to null. Otherwise, we set type to code. So basically, we're setting the type of the element to either nothing or code. So if it is code, it'll be reverted. If it is nothing, it'll be turned into code. And then we just have a matcher to make sure that it can actually apply to that thing. And then the same thing here with, or similar thing here with bold. We have the editor and we have a remove mark and an add mark. So if it is active, already bold, we remove bold. If it isn't bold, we're going to add bold. Okay. So that's that. Now that handles this piece and this piece. Now if we just refresh, here we go. We've got a little toolbar. Obviously not what we want in real life, but it just gives us the functionality that we're looking for to start. Now the next piece of the puzzle is the editable object, component. And this comes from Slate Direct. So underneath our toolbar, we're going to pop that in. So it's an editable component. It has an on change. So as things change, we log it. I'm just console logging. And then on key down, we've got basically special little captures here. So if you do like something like Control B, right? Control B, we're going to bold. We're going to use the custom editor toggle mark. And if you hit Control backtick, we're going to create a code block. So basically, we're just adding shortcuts. So both of these properties aren't actually needed or required. They're just kind of adding extra functionality on top. But then we have these two props here. Render element, which calls our render element function over here. All right. And then we've got our render leaf. And what Slate's going to do is when it gets to an element, it's using this as a render prop. As it gets to a thing, it's going to call our function, pass in the props that it has in here. And then depending, we're going to return different elements and we're going to render the leaves how. So you are given full control on how you want these things to look. So now you can see once I've hit save on that one, we now have our text here. And this is now editable. Okay, so that's nothing special. That's an input that grows as we type. You know, we've all seen this before. Right? But the cool thing here is now we can select that and we can hit bold or Control B and we can toggle. So now we have editing. So the code block takes the whole line and turns it into a code block. So now this is a code. This is, right, so you can now write your code in here. You know, so away we go. So we have a code block. And the cool thing here is we can now render this however we want. So if we jump into our code element, you can see we're styling this. So we can say, no, I don't want that. I want gray. And you can set the font color, the style, whatever. You could even run this through the code highlighting so we actually get real code. So that's a bit more advanced. And we, you know, in my 4x4, we're not writing code blocks, but it's just a nice example of how you can define a type. So as you can see, the main things to notice here is we toggle or do something. So we're saying toggle code block, and we are setting the type of that element to code. Now, once we have that, we've set the element type, you can see here. So we're getting that prop while we're running through this render loop. We're going to get the element type. And because we've set it to code, we say when we hit that, we hit code element, right? Now, the real cool thing here is we can say if its case is an image, we're going to return an image, and we're going to pass in the props. So let's just say custom image, just so that we don't get any collisions. But so what we're going to do here is now we can say custom image equals props. Now we can say when we get that, we're going to do this. Right? So we're going to pass in the attributes, and then we're going to say what's the element URL. Okay, so let's see if we go and build one now. So that shouldn't break anything. But if we now go in here and just add it in type image, and then we said URL. I wonder if this is a real picture. Let's go and see. Hope it's nothing dodgy. Great. We should now have this. Okay, let's see if we save that. So this is being, if I refresh this page, every element needs to have children, at least one text child. And there we go. So you can see what I've done is I'm just overriding the initial value, but we've just supplied a type image. Now these values can be whatever you want. So while you're building out your editor, you can create new types. So this is really cool for us because we want to be able to say like type project. So when someone posts a link, we want to have some sort of matcher. And then we're going to say, okay, cool. So someone's added a project and we're going to find the ID of that project. And then we're going to store it in here. Now, and the reason being is we don't want to store the URL because if someone changes their username or the short URL, that link will break. So we want to be able to just say, this is project, this is the ID in our database. And then every time we load that thing, we can go use a custom component, which will be a project component. And we can go inside of that, fetch the project data. And then we can render that out however we want. So we can create a cool little tile or module that sits inside of our post when someone's done it. So this is the basic setup of the post editor. So you can see it's obviously very simple right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to now create the full-blown new post editor or the post editor for my 4x4 using Slate. So we'll jump into that one. Okay, so the next thing that we were going to do here is we're going to set up just all our buttons, all the features that we want to add into this thing. So we've discussed we want to have bold. We don't want to have a code block. We want to have italic. We want to have underline. Or I guess we're going to have link. All right, so what we've got, bold, italic. We want a link. We want a numbered list. So this will be numbered list. And we want bullet points. Bullets. Could just call it bullets. And then we're going to also have H1 and H2. We're going to call it heading large. Or we can just go H1 actually. And H2. Okay. H1, H2. And then we're going to have an image. All right, so that's just set up all our different utilities that we're going to add in. Okay. And we're also going to have embeds. So with embeds, what we want to do is when we paste the URL, we want to take that URL, check it against a bunch of regex formats. And then depending on what that is, we want to create a special embed. So I think that's one of the things that I want to actually try to tackle first and just see, build the proof of concept for. So we need to tie into an event here on this editor. So I think what I want to do is, let's see if we can do, I think it might be the on key up. I wonder if we have on paste. On paste, that's what we want. I love that. Okay, so what we're going to do here is on paste, we want to log the event. Okay. It's interesting, it even has the files there from the clipboard data, so that's really cool. So what we're going to just do is this for now. So what we're trying to achieve here is if we go localhost and then we grabbed, let's say URL here of this Jimny, when we hit paste inside of this, we want to capture that. So let's say paste, there we go. So we got the on paste event, which is awesome. And then what do we have inside of it? We got the target, we got the clipboard data. There's no files or items, but the target, let's see, does it have children? I wonder, or text even, what do we have in there? Target.children. There's the outer HTML, text content. So we need to grab the actual data. So how do we do that? Okay, so what we need to do, from what I can see in the docs, is we need to wrap this with a special, so if you can see in the paste HTML, we need to wrap it with this a function where we're going to modify the insert data command. Now, because what we need to do is when we're inserting data, we need to watch this and see what type of data we're inserting. So they've used this here for HTML, but what we're going to do is we're going to use this for embeds. So when you're pasting a link, we want to handle these links in a special way. So when you paste the link, and if we match that to a known link, we want to take that link and then actually insert a different element. We don't actually want to insert the text. We actually want to override the insert data method. So to do that, you can create, I've just done it here, a with embeds wrapper. We're going to wrap this function around these ones. And now what we get is when this is called, we're going to get an editor. So you can see this with React takes in an editor. So this method is or function is required to return an editor. So you can make modifications to that editor and then return it, and then you can keep passing that up. So what we are interested in here is the insert data, right? So that's the base method, and here we're going to overwrite it. And then we're going to return insert data. So a little bit complex, but it allows us a lot of flexibility here. So what we're going to do is copy this link, and now watch, we can see, we'll clear this. When we paste it, I also want to see, so when we're typing, nothing actually happens. All right? But when we hit paste, you can now see that we have data here, and we are grabbing data.getData and in of a type, text plain. And you can see what we're getting here is a URL now. So now we have the URL. Now what we can do is we can match that URL to certain regex, and then from there we can determine whether or not we were pasting a project, are we pasting a post, are we pasting a YouTube link, what are we doing here? And then from there we can go and manually insert that data. So you can see here, they're checking if there's HTML, and if it is HTML, they're going to pass HTML, create fragments from it, and then insert those fragments into the editor, and then return straight away. All right? Instead of using the default method. And when you insert a fragment, it will paste directly into Slate. So it'll actually create the different HTML nodes. So this is looks like a very powerful method, if I am understanding it correctly. But what I want to do is I want to pull this out into a new function because it's going to get quite big. So we'll move on to that right now. All right, let's grab the function and we're going to pull it into a special util. So we're going to create a new file called with embeds.ts. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab this function, chuck it in here, and we're going to export default with embeds. All right. Now, we don't need this from here anymore, so we're going to import it. So above here, we're going to say import with embeds. Okay, and now we'll just, for sanity, we will check that it all still works. We should get a console log when we paste here. There we go, we got our data. Okay, so we actually, I don't even know if we need the paste on paste event anymore. So I don't think that gives us much data. I mean, I wonder if we can do this as well. Just as a side note, is if we can say console log dot clipboard data dot get data. Let's see what this does. I think this is going to give us the same thing. So we could even do this, but I don't know if we have the editor available in this stage. So customer edit. I guess we could run it this way too. So there's two ways we can do it. We can either wrap it with that function, or we can do this on paste. So let's just see what this looks like now. So if we do a paste, there we go. So we're getting it as well. So we can also access the string this way. And then what we could use is the custom editor, do an embed. So that's another option. So it could be handle embed, right? So let's go, or we could say handle paste. So we go handle paste. Okay. So let's see. Now, very interesting. We don't need to do that. But so do we use the event in anywhere here? Event.clipboard data, yes, okay. So let's go on paste. We're going to say custom editor dot handle paste. Right. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of this with embeds file. I'll leave it there for now, actually, just in case we have to go backwards. So handle paste. So let's go here, paste that on. Now we're going to say this, and let's just see if we're going to get this handle paste firing. Okay, so we're calling it there. So let's refresh, and then in here we got the on paste. So we're in business. So we'll go here. There we go. So that's where we were. All right. So what we're going to say here is we're going to say const text is that, and then what we want to say is we now need to check if, because this is also going to fire if you just copy paste normal text, right? So if you just grabbed, let's grab this text, right? And we just did a paste here. You can now see, look, we're just getting this random text here. So that's not a URL. So what we're going to have to do is now we're going to set up regex. And we want to basically create a handle embed utility. So what we can do here is go handle embed. And what that's going to get passed in is, so we're going to call that, I think we'll always pass through the editor. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say the text as well. Okay. So what are you doing here? That's not what we want. So we are going to say, I might move this to here. All right, so we're going to call the handle event, and it's custom editor dot. Okay, and that's the event. Right, so we got the text here. Now what we want to do is we're going to have our regex. So these will be embed regexes. Okay, so yeah, let's do objects. And then what we want to do is we want to have the regex, and this will be type YouTube. Let's see what this is saying to us. There's no console statement. What we want to do is when we paste that text, we want to run that text through our regex and then see if we get a match. If we get a match, then we know that's an embed type. If it's not, we're just going to continue and do nothing. Basically, we'll return out. So let's go. Let's see if this works. So we'll need to check our regex here, just make sure this is actually valid. Regex. So our regex is this, and then we want to go to YouTube, and let's go here, content, watch this guy. Now let's see, if we paste in this, that's our regex there, okay? So we've got a match, so that's awesome. So then we'd get YouTube, that's what we'd get. And then, so we can now run this. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna say, we're gonna go embed regexes dot sum, because we don't wanna worry about every single one. As soon as we get a match, we wanna return. And then here we go, Copilot's, what's it saying? So it says, if text match regex, then prevent default, insert nodes, embed type, URL. Okay, so that's pretty cool what it's trying to do here. It's getting there. We'll do something like this, but for now, let's just go console.log, and we're going to say match type. And then what we also want to do is the text. And let's just see what happens. It's throwing something here. That's part of this guy. So, stepping back. Okay. So let's see. So if we copy this link and then paste it again, nothing. If we copy this link, we got a match, so that's good. We got a crash, but that's fine. So what we got here is match YouTube. So it's known, we've got a YouTube link match, which is awesome. And that's the URL there. Now, what we want to do as well is we want to get the result of the match, because you can see here we got a capture block and we're actually capturing the ID. So we'll need to grab that as well. So that's the match. Now what we need to do here is just also quickly see what is this crying about. Nodes is not iterable. Insert nodes. So let's see where else we're using transform. Set nodes, transform.inset nodes, and what's this saying? Embed is not, so we're missing children. Okay, so this is the same thing again. Text. So what we can do here is just go URL. I think that will work. Let's see. Yep. Okay. That's just stopping it from crashing. But what we'll do, instead of inserting a straight type like this, we're gonna create our custom type. Now we can actually already do something here because we know that the type is going to be set to YouTube. So what we do, we can now just create, let's just see here, we can, inside of the render element, we can create a YouTube element now, right? And we can say return YouTube. Right, and we're going to create a YouTube element. All right, and what we're going to do here, instead, for now, we're going to just say it's a div, and it just says YouTube. All right, and then what we want to do is we want to also say props dot element dot ID. Right? We could even say YouTube ID. Can't resolve DOM node from Slate. So let's just try this again. I've probably made a mistake, but let's just see. So text. Let's make it a span. Maybe we need to do this. Maybe it needs those attributes. Okay, that's weird. So when we paste it like that, it's matching. That's really interesting. Now if I write YouTube, does that break it? No. That's quite strange. So we're obviously inside of a YouTube node now, or an element. That's why it keeps adding it in. Okay, so that's interesting. So, but anyway, so that looks like it's capturing our type now. So when we paste it in, it's capturing that as a YouTube element, and then rendering our YouTube thing. So what we want to do though is we want to now get the match. So if we look at our regex. So let's just jump into here and we say let regex equal, and then we're going to say let string equal this, and then we're going to go string dot match regex. Right, so you can see when we get our match, apologies if it's a bit small, but you can see the first result is the full result, and the second is the capture group that we've got here within the brackets. So that's the ID of the YouTube clip. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to say const match is equals to text match. And then we're going to say if there's a match, we continue. But then what we can say is, I say it's type that, and we're going to say it's match 1. All right, because that's the second argument, which is the YouTube ID. So let's try paste that in now. That is super annoying. So I don't know how we break out of a block now. But anyway, so we paste there. So you can see we've got match YouTube and then the ID. So when we create this node, what we want to do here is we're going to say the type, and we don't actually care about the URL here. So we can just say text, because that's the full text. What we're going to say here is YouTube ID is match 1. Okay, we don't need URL. Type children. All right, so I'm going to just bump this up. So now what we should have, when we have this node, we should have a YouTube ID. So when we render this out, we can actually just say YouTube ID, and then we're going to say that, and then we're going to do that. Now let's see if this works. So we'll refresh this and then pump that in. There you go. So you can see now when we're rendering, we now have this ID here. And that's going to allow us to use the YouTube embed to actually grab that and then grab the URL and actually embed this URL or YouTube clip into our page. What we really do need to do is get out of this. because that is super annoying. Insert node, and then I wonder if we can move out of the node. Because yeah, we want to insert the node and then we want to move outside of it, so we're not working with that anymore. So let's see how we can do that. So the first thing is we can just grab the YouTube embed React component. I think that's probably the easiest. There should be we've done this on my website. So let's go into code and then Ken Grief. All right. So inside of this guy, we have used a package, React YouTube, right there. So we're going to add that to my 4x4. So if we just go here, we can just go npm I React YouTube. And then chuck that in there. That's good. React YouTube. There we are. I probably actually need that open still, so I can just see how we used it. So that's inside of the blog post, and we used React YouTube here. So it's YouTube embed. So we will go here, and this is getting real messy. So we need to actually start pulling this apart soon. So it'll look like this. So if we go to YouTube embed, and now when we render YouTube, what we want to do here is actually just render that. Now I wonder what this props children is this going to create errors for us. But let's just close this off, because that's realistically all we want to do. We want to render a YouTube clip. We don't actually care about anything else. I wonder if we need this. So let's see. Refresh this guy. I've got to start the server. Here. Okay. Okay, so in here, when I hit paste, do we get crash? Yes. I wonder why. So I wonder if we can just return text nothing. I don't actually care about the text here. Can't resolve a DOM node from Slate node. I wonder, can children be nothing? So I've just discovered a little thing. So in Slate, they have a little concept called voids. And these are things that are not editable. So they're called void elements. And you can define which elements are treated as void by overriding the editor is void function, rendering void elements. So always have one empty child text node, render using attributes and children. Can't be an HTML void element. Content editable false. All right, so a little bit of a complex thing. So let's see, editor. Let's go. So we are looking for our little thing. So the first thing that it needs is content editable false. Now that prop will not, I wonder if you can set that on the embed. Let's just see what we got here. I wonder if you open this up, and this would be props.children. Let's see. Okay, so we need to set this as a is void. So what they're doing is, I noticed inside of here they had with embeds. You can see it here. They've got their function's just simply doing this. So we've already set up this function, luckily, and we're going to just do that. Now, when we paste this, hopefully, no, we're still getting that. Okay, so this is YouTube. All right. Is this still running? Let's just check it. Yep. With embeds. So why are you having problems? Slate node. Let's see how they're actually implementing it on there. So video element. And then this is use Slate static const YouTube. So let's see how we can do this. So let's try use Slate static. And then we're going to say on our YouTube. So this is going to turn to a proper component now. Here. And then we're going to say const editor equals use Slate static. And then what are they expecting? So what do we have? We're getting, they're destructuring this. But normally I would do it this way anyway, so I'm going to just follow that convention. Now the URL comes off the element. So that is not, we don't use URL, we use YouTube ID. And then they're wrapping the div with attributes. And then they've got a div content editable is false. Right? And then they have got another thing, and then they've got their YouTube. So let's push that into there. Get rid of this guy. We don't need that anymore. We don't actually need the children. So let's see what this does. What are you doing with editor? Oh, that's for their find path. So we probably actually don't even need that part, to be honest. We probably don't need the children. What were they doing with children? Where were they using this? Down the bottom. We don't care about that, I don't think. And that is YouTube ID. Let us see what this does now. Probably going to crash, but... Yep. Okay. Doesn't work. I'll keep digging. Okay, figured it out. So, quite clearly in the docs, void versus non-void. So the key difference is when something is void, the element handles the rendering of the children. When it's not void, Slate handles rendering of the children. Now, void elements must always have one empty text child node for selection. So that's what I wasn't doing, that children there. So what I've done is just added children after the YouTube. I'm just wondering if we need two content editable things, two divs sitting on top of each other. That feels like it might not be needed. But now what you can see is if we take this and we go bang, there's the video. Right? So now we have our video embed. So that's really cool, and we can hit play and watch some guy do some stuff. Yeah, so what I don't understand is how do we get out of that? How do we break out? But yeah, anyway, so that's what we've done. So we've added the YouTube component to our Slate editor. So that's really cool. So now that a similar concept's going to apply to all the other types. So we're going to look through and we're going to do matching, pattern matching on all of these and see like if we have a URL that matches here, we're going to have to check. So in this instance, we're going to have to look for my4x4.info/, which is obviously going to be a little bit hard to test in dev. But what we can do is we can say my4x4/ all localhost 3001. And then we're going to have a certain pattern match on there. So then when you do that, we can go and fetch the ID, which is what we're going to have to do, fetch the ID of this, and then store that item in. So that one's going to probably be quite complex because we're not going to have that straight away. So that's going to be a good challenge. So what we should do here next is actually create components for Slate editor. So we can do, we'll create a component called post editor. And then inside of that, we'll create all these little components so that we can store them and then it's not just becoming one massive file. So we'll jump into that one next. Okay, so what we're going to do now is set up the components. So we're going to create a post editor. We can probably go inside of here. So we'll create an editor. And then inside of that, we're going to have our special components. So we're going to have YouTube video. All right, and then we're going to go index, and then we're going to move that component we created earlier, this one, and pull that into here, export default, YouTube video. All right, so we'll do that. We need to grab the YouTube embed, grab that. All right, and what else do we need in here? I think that's all we need. So we'll just need to import this piece now. So we won't go that, and we'll say we're going to import YouTube video from there, and that'll be that one. All right, so we still got our component rendering nicely, and now we can just keep adding to these as we build them out. So the next one that we can try and do is we will try to do the project embed. All right, so we're going to create a component, project embed. Okay, and then similarly, we're going to have these props coming in. And we're going to have to set up a very similar concept to this one. And except here, we're going to just write project. Okay. So let's see, we'll jump back into this. And we're going to say import project embed. And now this will be, we'll define a type here, and this will be a my 4x4. I think, yeah, we can probably just call that. I wonder if we should just prefix this. Okay, and then we're going to return project embed props. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, when this is created in Slate, it'll look like this. So we're going to have type my 4x4 project, and we're going to have project ID. This we're going to actually have to get a project ID. So we're going to go here in the DB. We're going to look for projects, and we're going to grab this one. All right. And then the same thing, children text. So let's see what that looks like. Nothing. So let's just see what we're rendering at the moment. We should be rendering something. So let's just refresh. There it is. Okay, so we've got a project. Exciting stuff. Looks amazing. So that's cool. So that's when we insert a project. We should be able to, can we delete a project? No. I wonder why not. Should be able to delete it though. There we go. All right, so that's what it's going to look like when it's dropped in. Now, we need to have regex on this. So what does it look like So this is YouTube. When we're looking for a my 4x4 one, we're going to look for type, and this will be my 4x4 project. I might even rename this to match that casing. So we'll do underscores. And then what we're going to have here is we're going to have regex. Now, what does that regex look like? So let's jump into our regexer. And let's grab valid projects. So this is a URL for a project. That's one. And then also the equivalent could be, so if we actually go to my 4x4, so we'll have this as well. So these are both valid. So what we want to look for is HTTPS. So it's very similar to this concept here. So we'll grab that. Now, this can be conditional. And it can either be my4x4.info, and then this will be any word. So that's matching this one. But we also have to be careful because we also don't want things like, what's another one? Like a user profile, right? So if a user, how do we jump into a user profile? We want to make sure that this isn't found. Okay. Now also another thing to match is we can also have ones without slugs. So let's see this one. This should also match. So where we left off, we still getting this users in here, which we don't want. So I figured out the regex here, I believe. Did I? Doesn't feel like it all of a sudden. Or we need to do this, but we also need to have the flag. There we go, that's right, just for this one. So now you can see we are getting this match, all of the matches, HTTP or HTTPS, so that we can handle our local host. And we're also getting this guy, and the users one is being left out. So that's perfect. So that means we can match a 4x4 project. So I've added this into the regexes now. So now when we have regex that matches this, we know that it's a my 4x4 project. All right. So what I did and doing from there is when we paste this in, so when we handle the embed, we go and look and see if we match a regex. And if the type is a my 4x4 project, we're going to grab the slug, which is the match 2. So match 1 and match 2. And what I can do just to show how this looks is we're going to go to console.log and then we're going to do the match so we can actually see it. So in here, so let's go and copy paste this in. Now paste. Where are we? Do we have a match? We've got it on paste here. We've got the URL. I'm just wondering what this is. Where is that match happening? Let's see. Okay, so we just have to see why that's not running. Maybe I just got to refresh this page actually. Let's paste that in, clear this out. There we go. Okay, that's working. Sometimes you just need to refresh. So here inside the match, you can see we've got 3 items. We've got the first item, which is the full match. We've got the match 1, which is in our regex, this first brackets. That's a capture group. And the second capture group is our slug. Right, so that's the slug, which is this part here. Now that's what we need to look that project up in our database and find it so that we can store not the slug, but the actual, or the full URL. We can actually store the ID of that project, because by doing that, it means that if a user ever changes their slug and change it to something else, we want to make sure we have the correct project there so we can keep referencing this. So I think you may have seen this in Instagram. Someone changes their username in the past. It used to happen. You click on it, it no longer works, because looking up by username, that username's changed, doesn't exist, game over. So what we're going to do here is we're going to grab the slug, and then we're going to import the client, the TRPC here, the TRPC client, and we're going to look that project up, right? So we're going to say, find the slug, and then we're going to say client projects, get project by slug. We're going to pass in the slug, okay? From there, once we get that request is fulfilled and it comes back, we get data. Now that will tell us whether or not we have something. So it looks like here we're getting undefined. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say project. And I think I know why this is, but I'll have a look. So we're going to go project. Let's just refresh this. Refresh this. And now if we clear that guy and now pop that in, what are we getting? We're getting undefined. So for some reason, it can't find a project with that slug. Now that is interesting because it is there. So what we've got to do is let's just dive deeper and just see what's actually being passed in there. Let's see what the project slug is. I thought I had this all sorted. So we'll get rid of it, paste it in. Project, that's the slug, and it's undefined. So let's see what's being called. So project gets project by slug, but I can see data. Okay, so I'm doing something silly here, am I? Const data. Perhaps that is, let's just go like this. This is the query result. So let's just write it like this and see what we can find. Let's clear this out, paste it in, boom. So it's a promise. All right. So that is going to be our problem. We need this to run synchronously. Now, because these functions, I don't think can be called async, but let's try. Probably because it's in a loop. No. Oh no, that looks like it's fixed it. Let's try. What's gonna crash? I'm excited for it. There we go. Let's just see if we can undo some of this work though, and see if it still works without having all of this nonce. Where are ya? Let us see. Does that break everything? Copy. Do we still have it? Yep, okay. So if we just make this sum loop async, we don't need to make everything else async as well. We can just await. And now what we should have is data, and this will be project data. You can just call that project actually. Now, let's see. Refresh, paste, copy, paste. And what? Undefined now. I wonder if it's just straight up. I wonder if it's just project here. Yeah, okay. So that actual return value, this is just me not being 100% here on this query, but it actually returns the data is the thing we're looking for. Okay, so now we have our project. So now what we want to do, and you can see this code's just getting, this code, I'm showing with my hand, this code is getting a bit unwieldy, obviously, because we're kind of jamming everything in here. What we want to really do is handle each one of these embeds individually, because look, for a project, we're going to do something completely different to when we do a YouTube video, right? We also need it, how are we handling this? Like the insert nodes, we're going to insert different types of nodes depending on what's going on. So now what I'm going to do here is we want to make sure that we have a project, right? So what we could do is, because we want to continue and skip past this step if it doesn't. So we want to have like a handle for each thing. Like if this type, then do this function. If this type, then do this function. So just for sake of simplicity's sake, I'll say, we need to now say like, if there's no project, move on with your life, right? Because we don't care about that. So in a separate function, we will do that. But for now, what we're going to say is if project, nested if statements, not into it. But anyway, then we're going to do some work. So what are we going to do? We're going to go here and actually go bang. And now what we're going to do is we're going to insert the type, which is going to be my 4x4 project. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to say project ID is going to be project.id. Because now when we store a my 4x4 project, we are going to store the ID of that project. And then when we render that out, we will fetch the data again, depending on where we render it, so we can get the most recent data for that project. And then we're going to insert the child paragraph underneath. So just creates that nice line. And then what we're actually going to do here is we're actually going to return true, because we want to stop the loop. Because it's gone through and it's found the thing that we're working on. So don't keep looping for no reason. Don't try and keep matching regex, because we're just wasting everyone's time. So let's see if this works. I'm going to also do a console log here, inserting YouTube nodes. Realistically, each type should have its own insert, because this is YouTube. So we don't want to just randomly create a YouTube link. So let's do this and see what's going on. So copy, paste. Right, so we can see we pasted, we fetched it, and now we're getting a loop here of a my 4x4 project. Now if we hit save, what do we have? We have a paragraph object, which is going to have a line of text. It's going to have a my 4x4 project with no text. It's going to have the project ID there, and it's going to have the my 4x4 project. And then afterwards, we're inserting the empty paragraph again, which is this line here, right? So we need that line so we can easily delete this thing. Whoops. Bang. Okay. So let's try with a real link so we can check our regex, an actual website one. Yeah, Jimny. So we'll chuck that in there. Boom, it's found it. Right, now if we hit save, it shouldn't actually find it. Yep, that's right. So it shouldn't actually find it. So this is what I'm talking about. Because it can't look that ID up in our system, because that's from a live URL, it's found a match, but it won't be able to find the project. So you can see here's a bug. It's saying there's a type my 4x4 project, but it's got a YouTube ID. Now we only want to do, what we really need here is if type equals YouTube, then we do this, right? That's what we want. And then that should be there. And then here we should return true. Otherwise we just keep looping. But you can see how this is just getting like a bit ugly. So firstly, we check if we have any match of regex, and then depending on the type of match we have, we do different things. So now what we should see is if I paste that link again, it shouldn't actually find anything. But we do need a fallback here. We need to basically say, well, if there's nothing, just paste the text as is. Right? So otherwise what we're going to do, regex, and what we want to say is like const regex match. We can say matched item, I guess. And then let's just console log what that is at the bottom here. Okay, so if we get a match, we'll render out something. So now when I paste this, matched item true, which is interesting. Where are you getting that from? That should be false. Let's just do this. So it's not, if that, let's see what the type is. Let's see. Why is it finding a match? Yep, so that's fine. I guess what we need to do here is return false. Yep, so if we don't have that, we're returning true. If we have that, we're returning true. That, returning true. Defaulting to, what we should really do is we should say, if no match, so that just instantly returns false. And then we don't need that. Okay, just a little bit of tidy up. This code is a bit unwieldy for sure. Paste that. What are you still getting here, champ? So that's the my 4x4 project, but the project shouldn't, I don't think it has a project here. Where are you getting true from? I wonder if we need to return false here. Let's see. I'm probably doing something so stupid. Does sum always return true? Return true. Let me just do else return false. Let me just check the sum loop. Okay, so you can see what I've done here, just to test my theory. I've created a new sum here that always returns false, and then when you run it, match regex returns false. So there's definitely something happening. That's definitely something happening here. And I think it's because it's async loop here. So we'll try to figure that out. All right, got him. All right, so what I've done is I've found this sick little async sum function. So what this does is an asynchronous function that awaits the predicate and returns true or false. And what's going on, and it uses the for of loop, which is Lint is crying about. But what it's going to do now is we now turn this handle embed into an async function, and we await the response of async sum. And now what we can see is when we run this, matched item can be false if we paste in something else, or if we paste in a valid one, matched item will be true. All right. So I'm going to clear out all these console logs to make our lives easier. It's not so messy. Now what we can do is we can say, if there's no matched item, so if no matched item, so we had no regex match. Right, so we didn't have a match and we couldn't find that thing. So it's like we have a match, like for this one, it's a match. But if I paste it, it's a match because of the regex, but it's not a match because we haven't found the project in our DB. So that's a matched item false. So we're going to hit this now. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to insert a new text in here. Right, so whatever that thing is. And what we're going to do is we're going to just insert the text directly. Right, so we're just going to chuck that straight in. Not there. Here. Okay, because I think we're doing prevent default. And we might have to move this because I think this call here is blocking the actual paste of the data. Let's just see. Yeah. So yeah, if we have a match, we're going to prevent default there. I wonder if, is that even working anymore because we're inside the async function. Test it out. Yeah. So it works there. So prevent default works there. So we'll leave that there. Then we can continue on with this. So then if we have no match, we're just going to insert the text. That's all cool. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say, yep, that's all great. Paste. We got it. Okay? So that's how that works. So now what we've done is when we have a match, we match on regex, and then we look up in the DB and see if we have that item. So for a project in this instance, we're finding the project by slug, and if we have that slug, we go and check our DB, grab the information, and then store the project ID. Now we've created our JSON object that we need, so that when we hit save, we can see down here, there's the project ID. So now in the future, we can go and fetch that. And then if we paste something that's unrecognized, so if I'm just like, yeah, this looks cool, I want this as part of my post, I'm just going to clean that out. I can just paste, no worries. So we're not overriding the paste if we're not getting a match. So that's great. So the next piece that we need to do is actually go and add the little module or the little embed just to see what it looks like. So let's do that. Okay, so in the project embed, that's where we're handling this little thing, and at the moment it just says project. So what we're going to do in this one now is we're going to import trpc, this one, and now what we want to do is let's just console log the props. And let's see what we're getting. So I'll chuck that guy in. All right. So here's the props. So you got the attributes you don't really care about, the children, and then the element itself. So on the element, we have a project ID. All right. So what we're going to do here, we're going to say if no element dot project ID, we're just going to return null. We also want to do a project query is trpc use query. So this is going to be trpc.projects.getProject by ID .use query. And then in here we're going to say ID is element.project ID. And then we're also going to say enabled is if we have one. Now, I have a feeling that this is wrong because we need to actually have this, this, and this. No, this. So it's the first is the data we're passing up. And the second is the options. A little insect bothering me here. So that goes there. All right, now let's just do a little thing and just check this and see what we're getting. What do we get? Here we go, we've got a project query, we've got data, it's an object, boom, there it is. Okay. Now, when we get a project by ED, what are we getting? We're getting all the gear. So we're getting the images, the user, all of that stuff. So what we're gonna do now is inside this content editable, let's set up our project, right? So boom, boom. And then how do we want this to look? Let's go border, width equals 1 pixel. And then go, I'm just gonna do project here. So we can see it's there, got our little project. And then what we want to do here is we want to go padding equals 8. That might be too much, maybe 4. We're going to go border radius. And we usually, I think we're running large. Cool, so you can see we're creating a little embeddable here. We're going to probably do a project image. So do we have a project thumb or image? Not an image upload. Project image thumbs. What are we running inside of this guy? An image thumb. Okay, so that's a component. So let's see if we can use that guy. All right, so there will be no href, there'll be no key, and then we just got the image. All right, we need to import that. So this lives inside an image thumb. Sweet, so let's import that one. So let's grab it. So we're gonna go import image thumb. Now we need the image. So where's the image? The image is going to be, so we need to pull out the project. Data project, and we're going to say image is equal to project images dot image. Let's just double check that. So it's project images first in the array and then image. That's it. And that's going to be image. The href returns a string. All right, well, let's paste the project in. Sweet, that makes sense. So what we want to do is we want to say, probably should fix this guy. So if it doesn't have an image, it should return. So we're going to say return. So if no image, we need to be careful here and here. Okay, so if there's no image ID, just return null, save us a crash. We don't have time for that. So paste, boom, look at that. That's pretty cool, hey? Pretty fast as well. So that's gonna pull in our image thumb, and now we can just show. So whenever you paste this in, you're gonna just be able to be like, cool, pasted my little project, and you just go, nah, don't want that anymore. No, actually I do. And that's now, what you see is what you get editor. So that's pretty, I'm pretty impressed with that, to be honest. So that's really cool. So let's just keep going. Close off this, chuck it in here. All right, so let's create another flex box, and this one's gonna run direction column. And the first piece we're gonna have is text. So let's grab text. I'm pretty sure our big dog designer has worked on some of this for us. So this will be project title. And then what else do we want to see in something like this? That's the title. Yeah, well, it's interesting to know what would we put in here. Because usually we just have that. So we don't usually show anything else. It's just usually the title. So we can, let's just chuck that in for now. So we'll go, right? Boom, there it is. Margin left is equal to 4. This is almost a heading, to be honest. So let's go here, and we're going to go size small. Sweet. Keeping in mind, you know what we should do? We should take this whole page and let's just shove it in our mobile layout. So let's import mobile layout. And let's just wrap this whole guy in here. Because what we actually have to do is chuck the title in there as well. This whole thing's going to need a massive refactor because it's looking way too busy. What are you crying about? There we go. Look how cool this title bar looks. We do need to just check out what headings usually look like. So that's the SEO part, and then we need this guy. So let's chuck that there. And that's going to cry because we don't have it. All right. And this is going to be new post. There we go. And then below this, we're going to go margin bottom. Give us some space. Great. So now what we can do is actually see what this looks like. So let's grab this guy just to show you that I haven't been tricking you. That's super slow. We will paste that in there. Look at that. That's an embed. I've got an embed going. That's awesome. All right. So I'll end that one there today. But what we'll do in the next one is we'll finish styling this embed. And then we'll start refactoring this file so that it all looks good and feels good. We probably even want to have like a, when this isn't selected, you can see it. Because at the moment you can't, and it's a bit annoying. And then we'll see if we can do an undo redo as well, because that'd be really cool to Control Command Z that boy. All right, we'll catch you on the next one.